Hello and welcome to this video that will cover the next topic in GCSE mathematics in the numbers section, which is BODMAS. Now BODMAS is used to determine what things take priority when we have a sum. For example, if we have something like this, 4 plus 3 times bracket 4 plus 2 to the power of 3. If we have something like this, it's important that we use BODMAS. So we use BODMAS to determine which things that we do first. So BODMAS tells you the order straight away. That's why we use this term BODMAS, and each letter corresponds to a different operation. So the first one, B, is brackets. So when we have brackets, it's the first operation that we do. If anything's inside a bracket, we do that first. So for this sum here, you've got 4 plus 3 times 4 plus 2 cubed. We do the operation inside the brackets first. So we say that's 4 plus 3 times 6 cubed. It's the very first step that you do. Another example is here. If we have 6 times 1 plus 2, what we do is we do the operation inside the brackets first. So we do 1 plus 2, which gives us 3. So 6 times, and then it's going to be 6 times 3, which gives you 18. So brackets is your first one. The next one is something called orders, which is the O, and this is powers. So the next operation we look at is powers. So if we look at our example that we did before, now we have 4 plus 3 times 6 cubed. So our next step is to do 6 cubed, which you should do on the calculator. Remember, 6 cubed is equal to 6 times 6 times 6. It's 3 6's multiplied together, and that gives us an answer of 3 times 216. And another example here, if we have powers, for example, 3 times 3 plus 1 squared. In this example, remember we do the brackets first because that's our first one. So we do 3 plus 1. So that gives us 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. And then we do 3 times 4 squared. So 4 squared is 16. And then we do the multiplication as the final step in this sum, which is 3 times 16 equals 48. So you can see in this example, first we did the brackets, then we did the power, and then we did the multiplication. The next one, which is D and M. So D and M stand for division and multiplication. So these operations are essentially at the same level. It doesn't matter which one you do. We just call it BODMAS because that's the way that it's done. I mean, you could just as call it BOMDAS as well. The order of these doesn't matter, but it's the next step that we do. So division, divided, or multiplication. So they are important. So if we look at our example here, we've got 4 plus 3 times 216. We've got a multiplication here that we do first before we do the addition. So we do 3 times 216, which gives us 4 plus 648. Then the final one that we have is addition and subtraction. So the last step is A and S. Again, the order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have a subtraction then an addition. It's perfectly fine to do the subtraction first, then the addition. The difference between these two, they are exactly the same level. So if we were to do this in terms of levels, you would have B, which is for brackets, then order, and then you would have division and multiplication at the same level, and then you would have addition and subtraction at the same level. So we see we have brackets is level 1, order is level 2, at level 3 is division and multiplication, and at level 4 is addition and subtraction. So in our final part to our sum, oops, we just moved it along a little bit, there we go. In our final part, we've obviously just got the addition left that we need to do, so 4 plus 648 is equal to 652. Finally, a note about square roots. So often in mathematics, you will have a square root. Inside of it, you will have an equation. So for example, in this one, we have 3 times 4 plus 2 squared divided by 5. However, what you would, if you think about square roots are the same as we had square root of a, it's a to the power of a half. So you would think that the square root is done as a second operation. However, that is not the case. What we should really write square roots as, particularly when we have an equation in them, is as follows, with a bracket around it. So we have the square root of bracket 3 times 4 plus 2 squared divided by 5. So whenever you see a square root with a function in it, even if you have the square root of x plus 2, you should have square root of bracket x plus 2. It's telling you must do the operation inside the bracket first and then do the square root. But however, mathematicians are very lazy, so it's always known that we do the operation inside the square root before we do the square root. The square root is essentially the last thing that we do, but mathematicians are lazy and therefore they don't often put the brackets inside. So if we were to solve this one, so let's solve this as an example, we've got 3 times 4 plus 2 squared divided by 5. So our next step that we do is going to be 3 times, we do the bracket first, so 3 times 4 plus 2, which gives us 6 squared, and that's divided by 5. And then we do 6 squared, so 6 squared is equal to 36. So we do equal to 3 times 36 divided by 5. And then we have this situation where we have a multiplication and a division. Well, in this case, I'm going to do the multiplication first because it might make our job easier. So we do 3 times 36, which is 108 divided by 5. And 108 divided by 5 is equal to 21.6. So you can see here is an example of where multiplication and division, remember we have BODMAS. So what we did first was we did the multiplication first and then the division. That's fine. That's perfectly fine because remember at our level, division and multiplication are at the same level. So it doesn't matter which one we do first. We do the easier one because it's much easier to do 3 times 36 and then divide that by 5 rather than do 3 divided by 5 times 36 divided by 5. You could do it that order, but always try and make it easy for yourself. So here are some examples. So if you can, pause the video and try these yourself. Otherwise, we will go through them. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and try these yourself. So we'll go through them step by step. So the first one we have is 2 times 4 plus 6 times 2. Now, we don't have any brackets, we don't have any powers, we don't have any division, but we do have a multiplication. So we do the multiplication first. So we do 2 times 4 first, which is 8. And then we do 6 times 2, which is 12. So we end up with 8 plus 12, which is equal to 20. Then we do the second example. So the second one we have is 4 plus 3 times 2 plus 1. So we look through first and we say, well, we've got a bracket. So we do the bracket first. So it's going to be, but now we have to be careful because we've got operations inside the bracket. So it's a little bit tricky. So we write 4 and then plus what's happening in the bracket. Well, inside the bracket, we have a multiplication and then an addition. So we do the multiplication first. So it's 3 times 2, which is 6. And then we add 1. And then we still got the bracket. We haven't yet solved the bracket yet. So we do 4 plus 6 plus 1, which is 7. And then we just say, well, 4 plus 7 is equal to 11. So that is our result. For question number 3. Question number 3, we have 36 divided by 4 plus 5 minus 2. So we don't have any brackets, we don't have any powers, but we do have a division. So we do the division first. 36 divided by 4 is equal to 9. So it's 9 plus 5 minus 2. We don't have any multiplications. We do have an addition and a subtraction. Remember, these are at the same level, so it doesn't matter what we do first. So 9 plus 5 minus 2 gives an answer of 12. The next one is a little bit harder. So the next one that we have is 4 times 9 plus 2 squared in a bracket divided by 10. So in this example first, we go through, do we have a bracket? Yes, we have a bracket. So we do the bracket first. So we do 4 times 9 plus 2. There's only one operation inside the bracket. So we do 11 squared divided by 10. The next thing is we check, do we have a power? Yes, we do have a power. So we have 11 squared. So we solve that. So 11 squared is equal to 121. So it's 4 times 121 divided by 10. And then we look at our next step. We have a division and a multiplication. Doesn't matter what we do first, so we'll do 4 times 121 divided by 10, which is equal to 48.4. And that gives us our answer for question 4. And finally, question number 5. Question 5, we will pick a different colour. Let's pick a blue. So question 5, we go through again. This time we have a square root. Remember, what we have in a square root, we can rewrite it as follows. The square root of bracket 150 minus bracket 4 times 3 minus 2 squared divided by 10, close bracket. So remember, we want to treat the square root like this. Then we move on to our next step and we look at, well, what's in our bracket? Do we have a bracket? So we have a bracket, obviously, here. But we also have a bracket here, so we need to deal with that. So we have the square root of 150 minus, now let's have a look inside the bracket. In the bracket we have a multiplication and then a subtraction. Therefore we need to do the multiplication first because m is before s. So we do 12, which is, well, because 4 times 3 is 12. And then we've got the minus 2 squared divided by 10, close bracket. Then we move on to our next step. So our next step is to say, well, that's equal to the square root of, now we still have a bracket here, we've not yet finished it. We do 150 minus 10 squared divided by 10 because we've got 12 minus 2, which is equal to 10. Close bracket. And then we do our next step. So if we look again at BODMAS, we've done the bracket, we now go on to the order. So we look at the power. So here, the square root of bracket 150, if you put 10 squared into your calculator, or maybe you knew this already, it's going to equal 100. So 150 minus 100 divided by 10. Then we look at our next step. So we've got BODMAS. So our next step is division. So we can do a division now. So we've got 150 minus 100 divided by 10. So we divide our results by 10, which is going to equal 50 minus 10. Because 150 divided by 10 is 50, and 100 minus 10, 100 divided by 10, sorry, is going to be 10. And then finally we do our subtraction, which is 15 minus 10 is equal to 5. And now we have nothing left inside this bracket. We've just got a number. We've got no more operations. So we can say our final result is the square root of 5. And we usually leave a square root if it's not a number. So if you plug it into your calculator and you end up with some horrible number. So in this case, we've got 2.236, etc., etc. Unless the question is asking you in the exam, we just leave it as it is, as square root 5. So this is your answer. And there we go, we can see the answers there, 20, 11, 12, 48.4 and square root 5. Have a go at the worksheet. If you do have any questions, please write in the comments below. And otherwise, thank you for listening.